Hi, it's Rachel again from Locus Development and Learning. Yesterday I did a little video on resilience around stress responses and the bigger picture that we have fight and flight that we all know about, but also tend and befriend, and of course freeze. Now I've had a fair few responses and questions around tend and befriend, which is great. I love the questions. It allows me to illuminate you guys a little bit more. So that's what this video is going to be. It's going to be a bit of a follow-up, a bit more information around tend and befriend. So if we're thinking about stress responses, we know about fight or flight. We've heard about it for decades. It's all we ever are told about with stress responses. But tend and befriend is that bigger picture. This is not just some concept I've thought up. It's not just some small study that was done back in the 80s. Been many studies, and also neuroscience has found these systems that are actually happening in our very ancient part of our brains. So tend and befriend is all about neurotransmitters, hormones, chemicals within our brain. And tend and befriend is born out of oxytocin. That if you've had a baby, or you know anybody that's had a baby, you might have heard about this chemical neurotransmitter hormone, because our bodies are flushed with it when we give birth and also when we breastfeed. It's a real caring, nurturing hormone in our bodies, and it is also a stress chemical. It's delivered, pumped into our bodies when we are in a stressful situation, along with adrenaline and noradrenaline. Now, although this sounds like a female chemical, both sexes, men and women, have oxytocin, just like both of us have testosterone, which is where the fight and flight response comes from. So although the tend and befriend could be looked at as the more feminine, and fight or flight could be looked at as the more masculine, by no means are they separate. Both sexes have all of these available to them as their stress responses, because men certainly do have oxytocin and women certainly do have testosterone. But it's really about safety seeking. It's about looking for security and problem solving, because if fight or flight is not available to us, or it's going to put us in more danger, that's not going to help our survival. So we need to problem solve, find safety and security, and tend and befriend immensely help with that. Because if you're a pregnant woman and you've got a bump to look after, there's no way you're fighting anything or fleeing from anything quickly. You're going to put yourselves in more danger. Also, if you have got the responsibility of small children, no matter what sex you are or gender you are, if you are responsible for people who are less able than you, or indeed you have fragilities, then you are going to need more stress responses available to you. Again, if you have fragilities, if you know integrally inside you that putting yourself into a fight or flight response is going to produce more danger, then that is not the stress response that you're going to have, and your brain has more options for you. So it is all about how our brains work, and thinking about the inner workings of our brain. Now I'm going to teach you this brilliant hand model of our brain. This isn't mine, I wish it were, but this is the very brilliant Dan Siegel, who is a psychotherapist and neuroscientist, and he really looks at this working between psychotherapy and neurology happens. So he created this. I want you to look upon your arm, your forearm, as your central nervous system, the spinal cord coming up your back, carrying information. Your wrist is your very old brain stem, the mammalian part of your brain, totally about keeping you alive. If the rest of your brain was taken out, this part would keep your heart pumping, blood around your body, trying to keep you alive for as long as possible. If we close our thumbs over here, this is going to be our limbic system, all right? This is what holds our hippocampus and our amygdala, which are in communication with one another, looking for threats, looking for things that might endanger us, having that communication around drives, sex drives, our wants, our desires, our real primal needs. And then if we close, it's a very emotional part of the brain, it's very emotional. If we close our hand over the top, we've got our cortex, and right here at the front, we've got our wonderful prefrontal cortex, which is our rational brain, it's our thinking brain. It's the newer part of the brain, though it has been around for a couple of million years. And it's what sets us apart in trying to rationalize, think through problems. Now, when our brain stem and limbic system are really pumping, they're really seeing danger or becoming incredibly emotional or aggressive around something, then our prefrontal cortex pings. We literally flip our lids. And our prefrontal cortex comes offline. We are no longer thinking rational thoughts. We are all in the limbic. Yeah, we're very emotional. We might be very aggressive. We might be screaming and crying and hyperventilating. And it's very difficult to bring ourselves back online. We need time away from the situation. Our breathing really helps to regulate that and soften our limbic system and our parasympathetic nervous system to be able to bring our prefrontal cortex back online and think much more rationally about the situation. So what I want to illustrate here is our brains, the different parts of our brains are in communication with one another, yeah, all the time. And our thoughts and our higher mind can really help that, yeah. So if you flipped your lid, you might just be able to catch yourself and know, I need some time away so I can calm my limbic system down, soften it, to be able to think more rationally, make the apologies that I need to, try to solve the situation in a rational way. So when thinking about our stress responses, then the tendon befriend is coming from this very old part of our brain, all to do with attachment. Yeah, so it's our attachment and our caregiving side. It's the maternal, it's the paternal systems in the brain, in the mammalian brain, very old. Yeah, and it's about survival. Because when we're told that our stress response is fight or flight, it's all about survival. Well, when we know integrally within ourselves that to fight or fly is going to put us in more danger, then that's going to prevent our survival. So we have these other stress responses at our disposal. And they're safety seeking, they're problem solving, and we even have them as toddlers and babies. My lovely uncle yesterday said, well, hang on a minute then, to use tendon befriend, we must need life experience to be able to think about what to do in those responses. And actually, that's not really true. We see as babies and toddlers in very stressful situations, they're not toddling at the speed of light or putting up their little fists to fight. No, they're seeking. Okay, they're looking for their primary caregiver. They're looking for the people that can keep them safe. Yeah, they're trying to find that place where they can find a little hidey hole. All about survival. Yeah, and it's integral. It's within us and always has been. So, as I said before, resilience is really boosted when we know that we've got more options. And like I said yesterday, this is not new. This has been around since humans began. But I believe that it gives us more options if we're aware of it. If we can acknowledge it in our prefrontal cortex, then the communications with the limbic system, with the mammalian brain, about what systems to use in the different stresses that we have, starts to give us more options. We can start to think, I'm in fight or flight, but actually that could end up really, really badly. What can I use? Can I start to shift? Can I bring in that oxytocin? Can I soften the testosterone to think about the caregiving role that I might have or be able to put myself into? Gives us more options. So what if we really were in immediate danger? Wouldn't we always kick into fight or flight? Well, absolutely not, for all of those reasons that I've already given you. And just to give you a quick little anecdote, I feel like I can only really talk from my own experience, because that's going to come from a place of authenticity. When I was about 21, I was attacked coming out of my corner shop on a very sunny Sunday afternoon. I'd just gone to buy a tin of soup and some milk. There'd been a man shouting through the door that I'd just paid no attention to, really. The shopkeeper had apologised, and again I said, it's no problem. The shopkeeper had told me that he was an alcoholic and he'd been banned from the shop. Now, as I left the shop, this very big man in his 40s or 50s grabbed hold of me around the shoulders and started throwing me against a car and throwing me, screaming and shouting that I had disrespected him, that he was going to mash up my face and kill me. Because little did I know he was shouting through the door at me to buy him alcohol, and to him I had ignored him. Now, my brain was working 10 to the dozen in those milliseconds to try and figure out what on earth to do in this moment of immense stress, and immense danger. I did run through fight or flight. I knew I couldn't run. My house was just up the road. He would have seen where I lived, and that would have put me in even more danger. And I don't think I could have got past him, and he definitely wouldn't have outrun him. So that was danger. Then I thought about kicking him in the balls. And I knew that being a small, petite woman, if I'd have missed or something had not worked, I would have been in even more danger, because then he really would have mashed my face in and potentially killed me. He was a very, very big man. So in those seconds, I didn't know what I was doing at the time, but now I understand. I flipped into tend, so I heard him. His issue was that I disrespected him, so I tended to that need, and in that split second, never lost eye contact with him, and I said very, very calmly, "I'm sorry for disrespecting you." And something shifted in him, because I knocked him off balance a little bit, because I've responded to that need. And again, I recognised that, so I said again, "I am sorry for disrespecting you." And it diffused him. Didn't really know what to do then. He was drunk as well. It is even more scary. And he threw me away and said, "Get out of here. If I see you again, I'm going to mash your face in." And then I walked very calmly. My heart was pumping. I was terrified, but I walked inside myself, feeling like I didn't want to give him satisfaction of seeing how terrified I was. But actually, what I really recognise now was what I also didn't do was trigger the predator in him again. Because if you've seen the bunny and the cat and their loggerheads, as soon as the prey runs, triggers the predator, it triggers the aggressor to run after. So by walking very calmly in that moment, somehow I knew that that was what I needed to do to not trigger. And I managed to get home safely. Pray that he didn't see where I lived. The man from the shop had given him beer by this time. I didn't want the man from the shop to help me. His wife and very small child were in that shop, and that would have endangered them. Later on, I was able to tell my housemates what had happened and phone police and make sure that the shopman was okay. But in that moment, I had been able to trigger the tend stress response. I tended to that aggressor's need of disrespect. I wasn't sorry I had disrespected him. I had not disrespected him, but I knew there was something in me that knew in that moment that that was the thing that might just help me get out of that situation unscathed, alive, in one piece. Tend and befriend we see everywhere once we start to think about it and know about it. At the moment, we're seeing it everywhere. People are flocking back to the NHS. They're building online communities of help. We're out there applauding, clapping for our carers on a Thursday night. We are tending, we are befriending. When the Grenfell Tower crisis and terrible event happened, we saw people running towards that building, not running away from it or fighting with anybody. We saw them running towards it to tend to see if they could help in any way. We saw communities pop up, interracial, interreligion, just popping up to help to provide safety, security, survival for those people who had been affected. At 9/11, we saw people running to that crisis to see if they could help in any which way that they could, and building those communities to help. Again, tend and befriend. It is everywhere once you really think about it and start to know about it. So just reflect on your responses to stuff in your life and your future responses. Know that you have more options, so you can start to allow your brain to communicate with its different elements, which is really, really empowering when we're thinking about resilience. And we're going to talk about that a lot more, hopefully, in more videos to come. And just know that you are resilient. We as a species are. And I hope that you can join me again on future videos that I'm going to put up. And this is Rachel from Lotus Development and Learning. Take care of yourselves, take care of others at this time. Try to stay in as much as you can. Support those people who are out there doing the best for us. And I hope to see you again soon. Thank you so much for joining me. Bye.